and Keith Faber. They will be my liaisons on regulatory policy in the General Assembly. And where there's an issue that needs to be addressed, they'll be able to pick up the phone. They're going to call me directly. Look, we're going to run a very open shop here. And the findings and recommendations in Keith and Jim's report have inspired us for our proposal, which of course we do call CSI Ohio. And I want to talk to you just a little bit about some of the principles before I introduce Mary, because Mary is going to drive the changes. First of all, regulation should facilitate, not hinder, economic growth. Regulators should respect the contributions that businesses make to economic growth and job creation by helping them comply with regulations instead of just trying to catch them in violation that agencies can exploit for fee or penalty revenue. I want to reemphasize what Keith said. We are not talking about doing away with all these regulations. What we're talking about here is an effort to say if you're a regulator, you're going to work to help companies meet the regulatory standards in a way that promotes economic growth. I mean, to have a bunch of regulators out there beating down on industry and not making it easy for them to make money, it's like a tug-of-war. You got the business person pulling to create jobs, and you have people, without using common sense who pull the other way that destroy jobs. And I know that everybody in this room is concerned about job creation. Everybody in here. It's what makes families stronger. So we want to facilitate, not hinder, economic growth while still meeting the standards we all agree should be set for public health and safety. Regulation should be transparent and responsive. Agencies should develop regulations in the full light of public scrutiny, regardless of whether it makes more work for agencies, and agencies should seek and consider public feedback while developing regulations. You go around the state and you talk to people, they don't get talked to. And look, people who are doing the business, they don't want bad things to happen either. My philosophy is, if you have one bad actor, you take them out and hang them. But you don't need to regulate 100 people for one bad actor. That's a death of common sense, which has been written about inside of our country, that has been very appealing to people that practice common sense. Compliance should be easy and as inexpensive as possible. Regulatory compliance increases when regulations are easier to understand and follow. Therefore, the regulatory code should be modernized to eliminate duplicative, outdated, excessive regulations. Paperwork and permitting processes should be streamlined to minimum level necessary for effective compliance. As one guy says, if I want to start a business here, I need to fill out taxes. I got to go to 5 different agencies. We make it difficult for people to be able to start new businesses. And of course, regulation should be fair. Agencies should enforce regulations consistently and fairly and make every effort to minimize adverse economic impacts on at-risk workers. For example, up in North Baltimore, where we had a problem with permitting with the EPA, instead of the EPA going up there and working hand in glove and helping them to comply, they created a problem. The company is gone. They went to Indiana, okay? You got to get up there and you got to help people to comply. You got to pitch in and you got to save jobs. That's what this is about. Now, at the end of the day, if we can teach the bureaucrats, and we will, through the leadership we'll put in the various departments and agencies, that we're going to work together. And by the way, if you're having trouble, you're going to call me. You got some knucklehead in there in an agency that doesn't want to listen. You got bureaucrats that are in there that don't want to listen and they frustrate our people. You're going to get to me, and we're going to deal with it, because we're going to let nothing stand in the way of jobs. Now, Mary Taylor is going to head this process to drive a thorough review, and she's going to talk now a little bit about how she's going to do it, and a little bit about our goals and the substance of what we're going to do to make sure that we turn this Tower of Babel into something that English-speaking people and all people that speak the common language can understand. Mary?
Well, thank you. Thanks, John, and thanks, Senator Faber and Representative Zehringer. John has already outlined or laid out for you the principles. And what are we really talking about? We're talking about restoring common sense to the way that Ohio's regulators interact with business. So let me just lay out kind of the plan that we're looking at. As Lieutenant Governor, I will immediately initiate a comprehensive review of agencies' regulations to ensure clarity and ease of compliance, identify duplication, obsolescence, or excess, and bring agencies' regulatory development and enforcement processes into agreement with the administration's principles. Changes to the regulations will be submitted to the Joint Committee on Agency Rule Review for approval, and any needed reforms to regulations underlying laws will be sought in partnership with the General Assembly, and as John has already mentioned, with Senator Faber and Representative Zehringer.
Let me just jump in on that point very quickly, because what that means is that we will have a series of proposals that will go to the legislature that will change the underlying law that drives the regulations when the regulations make no sense. So, on the 50-cent or fining somebody $50 for a 25-cent error or whatever the heck it was, we need to pass a law to remove that. We're going to do it. So there'll be a legislative initiative in addition to the regulatory changes.
And what are we trying to accomplish? We want to eliminate duplicative regs or processes. If other states are doing it better, we need to do better in Ohio. If you can go to another state with less burdensome regulations, we have to ask the question in Ohio, why are we driving those jobs, those businesses out of Ohio? We need to do it different. We're going to be proactive. We're going to look for input from our small business community across the state of Ohio. We are going to continue to do statewide hearings and hear directly from our small business, not only what are the issues that you're facing today, but as we develop ideas or as we develop our proposal for change, we want to make sure that what we're recommending is actually going to work. And the best way to know that is to go directly to those that are impacted by overly burdensome regulations. Foster a constructive environment. Agency directors and their leadership teams will guide a regulatory staff in developing a constructive attitude toward businesses and customer service fundamentals and incentivize them to resolve regulatory issues quickly, fairly, and with a minimum of bureaucracy. What do we mean? Customer service. Our small businesses, our taxpayers in Ohio are our customers. We should treat them like customers. We shouldn't be bureaucrats standing in the way of them creating a job or starting a new small business. We want to help them comply with the regulations, not catch them and do a gotcha at the end if they make a mistake. We've done that at the Auditor of State's office. It's about being business friendly. It's about buy-in. It's about shared goals. It's about ultimately economic prosperity for all of us. If we work together to make sure we have health and safety and do it in a common sense way, I think we can still get done what we need to get done, but also give those small businesses an opportunity to create the jobs that they want to create in Ohio. Disclose proposed regulations and seek public feedback. All agencies will consistently disclose proposed new and revised regulations and seek public comment in advance of regulations implementation, regardless of whether or not they require JCAR approval. Now, some of you may say that's already being done. But what we have found is that it's not being done 100% across the board. The Business Gateway exists, and when an agency is seeking to change an administrative rule, they're supposed to post it so that they can get public comment. Well, what we've heard is that it's not happening 100% across the board consistently. And small businesses need consistency. They need to know they need an environment of certainty. They don't want to deal with an environment of uncertainty. And if these regulations are not being posted on the Business Gateway 100% across the board, then they don't know the environment that they're operating in. So we are going to require that it be done exactly that way. As John has already mentioned, protect at-risk workers and continuously seek lower costs. As agencies